this channel I'm doing a little bit of a lighter video. And this video is a shout out to Hannah Chaddha. As I'm thinking back to, I think about 2 years ago now was maybe the first time that I met her. 2 or 3 years, I can't remember anymore. Time is just flying. I want to say that I met her November of 2022. It had to be that, November of 2022. So by the time I met Hannah, I had already been to a few Challenge Mania events, 2 or 3 Challenge Mania events. And for those who don't know what Challenge Mania is, it's just events that Derek and his business partner Scott, Derek K from the Challenge, and his business partner Scott travel around the country and get all these challenges together, and then they throw events in either like comedy clubs or bars or restaurants. They go to different places. And I remember when I first started going to those, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go hang with this person and that person, I'm gonna see such and such and talk to this person and that person. And then I quickly realized that even though you're gonna go in the building and see all those people that are on the flyer, the time that you get to talk to them depends on them and you. And what I mean by that is, some of these people that come from these shows are standoffish. They feel like they're stars, so you have to do something real special to get to really spend any time talking to them. And I'm not one who's gonna get up and be like, oh, I'm your biggest fan, or I'm not gonna fight someone to talk to you, or I'm not gonna do the most to be able to speak to somebody. So once I got my little groove on with these events, because I'm not gonna lie, the first time I went to one of these events, I'm like, wow, I'm actually seeing these people on my TV that I watch every week on whatever show that they came from. But once I built my confidence up and kind of just knew where I am as a fan, what I started doing was bringing meaningful questions. And sometimes props. I have brought some props a few times, but what I always bring is meaningful questions that I think that people are not usually asking them, or things that I might just want to know for myself out of genuine curiosity. And what I found is, even though it takes me longer to actually get to the front of the line and I'm not the first person they speak to, they generally spend a decent amount of time talking to me. But that's not everybody, because I've had people that I have prepared things that I want to say to them, and then when I see them and I say it, they're like, cool, thanks, and then they walk away. I've had a few like that. But why I particularly wanted to shout out Hannah, it's kind of funny to me. I saw this flyer for Big D's birthday party, November of I think 2022 in Philly. I live in New York. The drive to Philly is probably an hour and 45 minutes to 2 hours on a good day, but I decided to go. I didn't know who else would be there, and I didn't know at that time, I didn't realize that these reality TV people hang out in packs. So now if I went to a Big D party, I would assume that there'd be multiple cookout members there and other people from Survivor and different shows there. But at the time, I had no idea who was going to be there. I get there and Ozza's there, Hannah's there, Cinco, Taylor and Joseph. I can't even remember. Paulie was there. I can't even remember, but it was a lot of people. But the thing with most of the other people, not all, but several of the other people, was that there was so many fan interactions that, they'll come and talk to you for your 5 minutes or less, and then they will make their way around the room. Nothing wrong with that. So I had all these things to say to Tiffany, to Big D, to Polly, because as much as I like Hannah generally, I didn't have a lot of show stuff to talk about with her. Because I was thinking to myself, I know that she made it to the end of the cookout, or she made it to the cookout, the final 6. And I know that as a group, it's a legendary group. And that was my first season of watching Big Brother. My first full season of watching Big Brother. But I didn't have much individually to say to her. So I was like, I don't even have anything really much to say that is going to make this a long conversation. So I guess I'm pretty much just going to tell her, hey Hannah, I'm a fan of yours, and then just grab a picture with her and go. But the one thing that I thought of to say, it was right after season 24, or it was after season 24. So I remember coming off of season 24 of Big Brother. That was a really controversial season. And if y'all know anything about the media, and now I say this stuff freely because I will never get an interview from any of them. I'll never get an interview from anyone who's actively on their CBS contract. I just know that by now. But once you start seeing the people that CBS has on their approved list for interviews, and then you start watching all the interviews back to back, you start to notice that the questions are all very similar. And people have openly talked about the process. Even Sharon Tharp, who I think has some kind of, works with CBS on some kind of official capacity, she has spoken about how when she's doing her exit interviews, she sends the questions into CBS, and CBS edits and changes them and omits some and sends them back and is like, this is exactly what you can ask. So I realize it's not really on the interviewers. You know, I'm not even mad at that. I wouldn't personally do that, because what's the point of me interviewing somebody if I can't ask them any real questions? But regardless, I remember when Hannah was asking her questions, and I was saying to myself, wow, how is she able to ask these questions without getting in trouble with CBS? Because she was actually, I can't remember if she was working with Sharon, but I remember she was doing official exit interviews on season 24, and she was asking things in a politically correct way, in a sense, but she was still getting out what she was trying to say. And if you remember those interviews of Hannah's for season 24, you know exactly what I was talking about. She found ways to ask about Michael. She found ways to ask about Terrence, Daniel, like things that people were kind of skirting around. She was figuring out ways to ask those questions. So that's actually what came to my mind to say to her. So I said to her, hey Lisa, I was like, Hannah, you know, I watch a lot of these exit interviews and I've been really disappointed with them because they're not really addressing the topics that we want them to address. They're just dancing around the topics and they're very tame. And so she was like, oh, well, you know, thank you for noticing that. She was like, you have to figure out ways. They do give us specific things that we are allowed to say or that we're not allowed to say. And you just got to be really smart and strategic, because nothing that I have said has broken CBS's rules that they have given to me. And then I actually said to her, because I wasn't really doing, that was my first year. Oh yeah, I wasn't doing any interviews at that point. I hadn't done a Big Brother interview at that stage. So I said, I'm thinking of starting to do interviews. and I was like, can you give me any tips about starting a podcast? And she actually stood there for what had to be 10 minutes, maybe more than that, just giving me different tips about podcasting and how to build your brand and all this different stuff. And at a certain point, I'm like, she's still here? Because usually they give you some little quick answer and then they go. And then the funny part to me personally was that the conversations with everybody else that I've met at any of those other events always ends with them being like, okay, well thanks for your support, and walking away. She was just talking and talking and talking, and then I ran out of things to say, and she was basically like, you done? You good? And I'm like, yeah. Like, she was still standing there as if you have 10 more questions, I have 10 more answers. So I really appreciated that, because she's just really, really cool, down to earth person. So that was just my quick Hannah Chaddha story, and shout out to her. And that was a Throwback Thursday story as well. So I hope everyone's having a good Thursday, and we'll chat again soon.